Hello, this is Greg Prejean from Wkbk News Magazine. I am here in Henniker, New Hampshire with the Henniker Brewing Company co-founder, Dave Currier. Thanks, Dave, for letting us come here and talk to you and giving us a tour here today.
That's great. Great to have you.
I've got a few questions because I know a lot of people have tried your beer and like your beer and, want to know a little more information about you. And the first thing is, how did you get started in the craft beer business?
Well, I actually had another business that was in this building, and I retired from it and was renting the building to them. And when they decided to move to a different location, I had to find another use for the building. So a group of us, mostly young people, I'm the oldest in the organization, we started looking at different options, and craft beer doesn't have a real big player in the central New Hampshire area. So, I mean,
you saw a niche.
Portsmouth, basically a niche, and something that we all enjoyed. Most people do, and and drinking beer, that is.
Right.
And we started putting some plans together. In November of 2011, it was in May of 2011 we incorporated and put together a whole team and moved into the building when they vacated it in July of 2012. We were brewing beer by December 2012 and shipping beer by January 2011.
Wow.
The rest is history. Now we have 4 flagship brews that are brewed year-round, and we are starting our first seasonal coming up very shortly in November.
Great. Now, did you home brew it all before you started doing this?
No, I was just a beer drinker before.
Just a beer fan.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've come to, in this process, I've actually come to enjoy beers that I didn't, really know a lot about in the past, and because I was obviously drinking all kinds of different beers to see, what the differences were between them and stuff. So it was pretty interesting.
Well, now you brew 4 different varieties of beer. Now, how did the recipes come about for the?
Well, the recipes are a professional. Okay, in other words, I have no idea about.
Since you didn't homebrew,
the science. I know more now than I did, obviously, 12, 14 months ago. But the recipes basically come from the brewer, and so he developed the various recipes in the brew.
You've got your 4 varieties of beer here, and you mentioned earlier specialty beers. Now, you're just starting specialty beers for events or holidays. And the other question I'm curious, do you brew beer like a really kind of interesting taste just for yourself, or is it always for people to buy?
Actually, well, obviously we're trying to, fashion recipes and brews that are unique. And have a taste of New Hampshire flavor. For example, the coffee stout, we're teaming up with White Mountain Coffee Roasters in Concord, New Hampshire, and to bring that product to market, which will be in late December. It'll probably be in the stores in late November, early December. And but we've been brewing it, our beers, and fashioning the recipes, to be unique, obviously.
Sure.
To our brewery.
Well, good. All right. Now, also, you bottle beer in quarts and also kegs for restaurants. Do you have a preference for either one? Is one easier than the other?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because when you go into a supermarket these days, the craft beer section of the supermarkets are almost like the wine sections. So they have 22-ounce bombers from all over the country that they're merchandising these days, and so the 22-ounce bombers, which is 1 pint 6 ounces,
right,
which is the requirement for the federal statute.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that because that seemed like an odd size, but
it's on the we have to have label approval for every label, and which is done by TTB, which is the Tobacco and Trade Bureau of the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, which we're regulated on the federal level, and then of course the state has another whack at it because they have a final say in terms of the labels. So, we, like for example, on our Working Man's Porter, we were using in our verbiage on it some terminology that said hearty, soothing, and robust. And the thing is that they disallowed the wording of soothing because it implied a
healing
medical benefit to the consumer. So we had to take that word out.
So then I guess what you're getting at is that you feel like the bomber market is a little crowded right now, and that taps and restaurants are a convenient way to get your beer to the masses. So eventually they'll come back to the store and buy your bombers.
And one of the other things that we have on the docket is where, craft beer typically has been found in bottles. And the thing is that there is a new trend now to go to cans. And so there's a unique kind of business that was established, and it's big out in the West Coast, where they have mobile bottling and canning companies. That they come on a truck and bring their stuff out, and casters bring it into things, plug it into your bright tanks, and then 5 hours later leave you with 5,000 cases of cans, and you don't have the overhead of that machinery, which can be very expensive.
Sure.
So we're going to be going into cans, and I think we're going to start off with, I believe it's the IPA is going to be in bottles when we first start out.
Well, great. Yeah, Christopher had mentioned that to us. We were taking a tour, so that's great. Yeah. That's really interesting.
I mean, there's a lot of markets where bottles are accepted. Golf courses, beaches, campgrounds, places where they can become a hazard if they get broken. So,
exactly.
So we're obviously and it's a convenience thing. The cans are for the most part. So.
You've got a 15-barrel brewery. So how much beer, let's say in a week, do you normally brew?
Well, it depends, because when you brew, you have to have fermentation tanks to put it in. So we have three 15-barrel fermenters and a 30-barrel fermenter. So when those fermenters are all full of beer that's fermenting and ready to be ready for packaging in a 10 to 14-day period, so we're restricted basically in how much beer we can make in a given week based on how many fermentation tanks we have. So we have the ability to basically do, I think it's 75 barrels of beer. And a barrel of beer is 31 gallons. So you multiply that out and you get the math.
So that's a good chunk of beer.
Oh, it is. But the thing is, as I say, we're spacing and timing everything so that we can do brews, and ultimately we'll be adding additional fermenters as the need arises. So we're basically brewing to what our needs are at this particular point in time.
Any plans for expansion down the road? Are you just going to kind of stay pat for a while and see how it goes?
Well, I mean, I had already gotten a quote on some additional fermentation tanks because I was just curious what the prices are these days. I mean, we have a major investment, obviously, in the tanks and the equipment that we have today. I mean, there's about $250,000 worth of stainless steel out there in the brewery, so it's been an interesting process, and obviously we need to be, as we expand, because we want to be a regional brewer in the 6 New England states is going to be our focus. So once we start getting into Massachusetts, we'll have to increase our volumes and stuff, and we'll be doing that. One of the things that we did do was when we built the septic system of the wastewater treatment facility, we actually talked to the people in Keene who run their wastewater treatment thing, just to get some idea of the various sciences with regards to dealing with the waste, because it's basically only brewery waste that's going into it. But that little project, we decided to bite the bullet and actually expand that beyond the original capacity so that we can grow into it, because 5 years down the road we didn't want to have to build a whole new wastewater treatment facility. So we built it to like about a $7,000 a year annual production. So, interesting.
Okay. All right. And one other question. What do you think of the craft beer popularity going on right now? You think there's going to be a bubble that burst at some point, or is there enough beer drinkers out there to support regional breweries who, as you are, kind of supporting like a limited area?
I understand the question, but I'm telling you, we signed up for this living social thing, and I kind of poo-pooed it in the sense because I said, coupons and anyway. The first day that it launched at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I came into the office and I asked Ryan, I said, hey, how many of those have we sold? And he said, well, we sold 7. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. I said, who gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning looking for brewery tours, you know? And there is a rage in terms of the whole craft beer industry. And there are, I forget how many they told me, the National Brewers Association was talking about how many breweries and planning there are across the country. And it's a staggering thing. And there's 6 or 7 of them in New Hampshire alone. And so, you know, the popularity of craft brewing is right there. And at some point it's going to peak, you know. And
but you feel it's still got a ways to go.
well, I mean, I think New Hampshire still has a way to go. Like, for example, I think there's 25 or 20, actually there's 26 breweries right now. And when you talk about a brewery, we're talking about brew pubs and actual production breweries, like, you know, like Smutty Nose and
Sure.
and you know, Woodstock and Tuckerman's and those, you know, those are production breweries like we are.
Right.
And then you have the brew pubs, and you know, the brew pub has a real great popularity because they're brewing in smaller batches. And you know, you go into a brew house right now in a brew pub, and they've got 14 different styles of craft beer on.
Right. And I assume you've been to Elm City Brewery in
In
Keene.
fact, we've worked with Bill Dunn, who was the brewer there for a while there, and you know, he was a very big help to us in terms of that whole aspect. His wife teaches at Keene State, actually. So,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Well, great. All right. Excellent. All right. And finally, I just want, where can folks who are interested in your beer, where can they go online to get more info about your company so they can order merchandise or check out tours and things like that?
Actually, the website, we're trying to keep the website updated as much as we can. I mean, there's virtually only 5 of us, you know, working in the business, and we're all wearing all different hats, depending on what we're doing that day. And I mean, at one point, bottling was a full evolution where all hands on deck. And but anyway, the bottom line is that our website has all that information on it in terms of where you can purchase the product, and has a link to the Square Center where you can buy merchandise online. Facebook is obviously the most timely thing because we post things daily almost on that, and several times a day.
What's the website address they can go to?
It's just basically www.hennikerbrewing.com. In fact, you know, when that other question you were asking about in terms of the popularity and stuff, we had 250 people here at our first open house in May. And we're kind of a little nervous about what we're having an Oktoberfest open house on the 26th, I think it is. And you know, we had off-premise parking and shuttle people to the place because, you know, we have limited parking here. So, but it's like there are people coming. We're getting a big following from the Lowell, Lawrence, Drake, Pepperell area of Massachusetts, and that show up here on Saturdays for the beer tasting and tours. And it's been really exciting actually, because it makes us you know, want to think a little bit stronger and longer about getting into Massachusetts sooner than later.
Now, when do you offer tours of the brewery?
Basically, because of brewery production, when we're in operation at the brewery, it's very hard to do tours because of all of the other aspects from, you know, OSHA and safety things. So we typically do tours on Saturdays from noon to 2.
And the tap room here is
The tap room here is open Monday through Friday from 3 to 6, and then Saturday from noon to 2. So, yeah, you can come by and have a tasting and take a growler home. I mean, the growlers are it's basically a half gallon of beer that we use, and it's $12 for a growler and a $9 refill when you bring it back.
Well, great. Well, Dave, I want to thank you very much for the tour today and the beer we tasted early and all the info, and good luck in your adventure.
Yeah, goodbye. Stop by again.
All right, very good. This is Greg Pregent for Wkbk News Magazine. I'm at Henniker Brewery Company in Henniker, New Hampshire.